In the quiet, isolated town of Arden Hollow, an abandoned library stands as a relic of a bygone era, shrouded in mystery and fear. Once the heart of the community, the library abruptly closed its doors after a tragic event left it cursed and its halls haunted. When a curious historian named Emma arrives in town, she is drawn to the library and the dark secrets it hides. Determined to uncover the truth behind its closure, Emma ventures inside, only to find herself trapped in a maze of ancient books and ghostly whispers. As she delves deeper into the forgotten stories held within its walls, she awakens the restless spirits of those who sought forbidden knowledge, and uncovers a curse that binds them to the library. To break the curse and set them free, Emma must face the truth of what happened there, and the chilling consequences of tampering with the unknown.
Tonight, I have a tale that speaks of forgotten knowledge, of whispers trapped in dusty pages, and of a library that has been abandoned for reasons long forgotten. Welcome to the story of The Haunting of the Forgotten Library, where the books hold more than just words. They hold secrets of those who dared to read them. In a small, isolated town, hidden away from prying eyes, there stood an ancient library. Its stone walls were covered in ivy, and its windows, clouded with dust, seemed to look out with an air of melancholy. The townsfolk avoided the place, speaking of strange occurrences. Books that moved on their own, whispers in the dead of night, and a feeling of being watched as if the very walls had eyes. The library had been closed for decades, its vast collection of books left to decay. But there were rumours of a time when it was the heart of the town, a place where knowledge flowed like water. Then, one day, it closed its doors without warning. Some say it was because of a terrible event. Others believe it was cursed, but no one knew for sure, and no one dared to find out. That is, until a curious young woman named Emma arrived in town. She was a historian, fascinated by the stories and mysteries that lay hidden in forgotten places. When she heard about the library, her curiosity was piqued. She decided to venture inside, determined to uncover the truth behind its closure and the secrets it held. The moment she stepped inside, she felt it. The heavy silence, the air thick with dust and something else, something watching. The shelves, lined with books of every kind, seemed to loom over her like silent sentinels. She took a deep breath and began to explore, her footsteps echoing in the vast, empty halls. As she wandered deeper into the library, she noticed something strange. Some of the books were open, as if someone had been reading them recently. She felt a shiver run down her spine, but shook it off, telling herself it was just her imagination. She picked up one of the books, its pages yellowed and brittle, and began to read. The words seemed to blur and twist before her eyes, and she felt a sudden wave of dizziness. She closed the book, her heart pounding, and then she heard it, a soft, faint whisper, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. Leave this place. Emma spun around, but there was no one there. The library was empty, save for the shadows that seemed to stretch and twist around her. She shook her head, laughing nervously. Just the wind, she whispered to herself. But the whisper came again, more insistent. Leave before it's too late. She backed away, her eyes darting around the room, and that's when she saw it. A figure standing in the corner, barely visible in the dim light. It was just a shadow, but its eyes were glowing, watching her. She blinked, and the figure was gone, Her heart raced as she stumbled backward, knocking over a stack of books. The sound echoed through the silent library like a gunshot. She turned to run, but then she saw something that made her blood run cold. "Help us." The words were scrawled across the wall in what looked like blood, dripping and fresh. Her hands shook as she raised her flashlight, the beam flickering over the words. She swallowed hard, her breath coming in short gasps. Emma turned to leave, but the door she had entered through was gone. In its place was another wall of books, stretching up to the ceiling. She was trapped. Panic surged through her as she tried to find another exit, her footsteps quickening, echoing in the vast emptiness. And then she saw it. A book lying on a pedestal in the center of the room, surrounded by candles that flickered as if stirred by an invisible breeze. The book seemed to pulse with a dark energy, drawing her towards it. She knew she shouldn't, but she couldn't stop herself. She reached out, her fingers brushing the cover. "You must leave before it's too late." But it was too late. As she opened the book, the room around her seemed to shift and change. The walls melted away, and she found herself standing in a different place, a different time. The library was full of people, their faces twisted in fear and pain. They looked at her with hollow eyes, their voices echoing in her mind. "You shouldn't have come here." Emma tried to speak, but her voice was lost in the chaos. She stumbled back, the book slipping from her grasp. The people around her reached out, their hands cold and insubstantial, passing through her like mist. "You must help us," they whispered, their voices a desperate chorus. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "How? What happened here?" she cried. But they only looked at her with those hollow eyes. And then she saw it, a vision of the past, of the day the library closed. The townsfolk had gathered, desperate to learn the forbidden knowledge the library held. But they had gone too far, unleashed something dark and terrible. The library had become a prison, trapping the souls of those who sought to possess the knowledge within its walls. Emma fell to her knees, the weight of their sorrow crushing her. She looked up, her eyes meeting those of the shadowy figure that had been watching her. It stepped forward, its form shifting and changing, becoming more solid. It was the librarian, the keeper of the secrets, bound to the library for all eternity. "You must break the curse," he whispered, his voice echoing in the stillness. "You must free us." Emma nodded, her mind racing. She looked around, her eyes falling on the book she had dropped. It lay open on the ground, its pages glowing with a soft, ethereal light. She reached out, her hands trembling, and began to read. "To break the curse, you must release the knowledge, set the truth free." She took a deep breath, her voice shaking as she read the words aloud. The room around her trembled, the air crackling with energy. The figures around her began to fade, their voices whispering a final plea. "Thank you." And then everything went dark. When Emma opened her eyes, she was lying on the floor of the library, the candles extinguished, the book gone. She sat up, her head spinning. The door was back, open, inviting her to leave. She stood, her legs weak, and stumbled towards the exit. As she stepped outside, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon, she looked back at the library. It seemed smaller now, less threatening. The weight that had hung over it for so long was gone. The curse was broken. But Emma knew that she would never forget what she had seen. The voices she had heard. The library was free, but the knowledge it held would remain, waiting for the next curious soul to venture inside. And the whispers would never truly fade. Some places are forgotten for a reason. Some knowledge is better left unknown. But remember, it's just a story. Or is it?